Well, Obama's calling a top Democrat staging a Biden intervention. And we're not talking about Hunter, although that would be pretty good, too. Barack Obama telling President Biden that he better get off the beach and start campaigning, or he's going to lose his re-election. And we might lose our lunch having to stare at those man boobies. Barack reportedly telling Joe his concerns, quote, "We're not about Biden's political abilities, but rather a recognition of Trump's iron grip on the Republican Party." Obama also promising his old pal he will, quote, "do all he can to help Biden keep his job." But Biden should probably be a little worried about his standings in his own party. Even the liberal media questioning Joe's ability to make it past the finish line. Watch.
The question is, how solid a candidate is Joe Biden?
That's the problem. That's exactly the problem.
And
what is exactly the problem?
That we don't know how solid a candidate Joe Biden is.
We know he's not a solid candidate.
Exactly.
He is struggling. I mean,
within his own party.
It is hard to watch.
Donald Trump's approval rating was actually slightly larger than Joe Biden's was at this point. Trump was at 43%. Biden is at just 41%. So he's doing worse than Trump, who he was always saying was doing so poorly.
Look at the numbers. Joe Biden's support has dropped significantly among people of color, especially among Latino voters, but also among Black Americans.
When you've lost Joe and Mika, you've lost the fight. Hunter's shady business deals also dragging the big guy down. A majority of Americans now think Joe's administration is unethical. But don't worry, Joe knows how to seem relatable to voters. He's rolling out his alter ego. Cringe. Dark Brandon.
I like my coffee dark.
Oh, dear Lord. Yeah, that's a lot of this is shaping up to be pretty problematic for the president. So what do you think the president should do when he's faced with the advice from former President Obama? How seriously should he take that counsel that Donald Trump is more formidable, a better candidate, and more of a threat than Biden and other Democrats feel?
Well, I think a lot of Democrats think that running against Donald Trump again for Joe Biden would be not easy, but preferable. I thought President Obama, if indeed he gave him that advice, was very, very smart advice. We've said on this show many times before, at least I've tried to, that President Biden, any incumbent, when you get towards the times when you're running for re-election, you got to get out and define and brag about what you've done over the last few years for the country. You got to speak to the aspirations of the country and even be vulnerable about what you may not have been able to accomplish, and then advocate like the day is never going to end about how you're going to make the world better, how you're going to make the country better for them and their kids. We're in the middle of a campaign. My advice to the White House, I know the president and Mrs. Biden deserve some time off, but no more pictures on the beach.
No.
Everyday Americans are getting ready to go back to school. You got half the country will be back in school with their kids in the next week or so. Get out and do the things you need to do in order to remind us why we voted for you, those of us that did, and even those that may not have voted for you, why they should consider voting for you again. I think thinking that Donald Trump is going to be the nominee and thinking he's going to be a less than formidable candidate is exactly the wrong thing to do. So I give kudos to former President Obama for giving him that advice.
All right, so Jesse, leaning into the whole Dark Brandon thing.
And that was dumb. I'm sorry. And that was, please stop that.
Yeah, you got to
stop that.
But,
Dark,
you know, you have to do something to overcome the Hunter troubles, because with Devin Archer's testimony before the House Oversight Committee this week, the circle around the president is tightening. His lies, or, you know, his half-truths, whatever you want to call them, they seem to be catching up with him. Is Dark Brandon enough to overcome less than light Hunter?
No, it's not enough. Remember, Dark Brandon came from Let's Go Brandon, which came from what.
Yep.
So the political consultant tried to capitalize off that goofy smear, and this is what they came up with. It's funny because he is a dark guy. He's a nasty guy. He's arresting his rival, and he's been shaking down Chinese and Ukrainian executives for years and hiding it. He's nasty to his family, to his granddaughter. He's a nasty guy. He calls people white supremacists. He's not a nice guy. So they're kind of funny about it, but there's some darkness in his soul. Now, Obama's big brothering this guy. They hate each other.
Really?
They hate each other, these two. Remember, he only chose Biden as VP because he was a white guy who had foreign policy chops and knew his way around Washington to balance that ticket. And he gets in there, and Barack never took him seriously. They would laugh at him behind his back. And we always remember he said, you know, he's going to F it up eventually. and he kind of is.
That's the same
as
thing they
this
said about Brandon?
and he is messing it up when you look at the Hunter stuff, and now it's his stuff. It's more of a Biden scandal than a Hunter scandal. So Obama's going to come in and say, you know what, to everybody after this meeting and leak it. And I was like, hey, Joe, you know, I'm here if you need me because Trump's pretty tough. So let me know what you need me to do.
Be the Obama in that conversation.
Right. So he's trying to get a little shine off it. Now, Biden without the pandemic is a weak candidate.
Yes.
Without the pandemic, they see he can't raise money. His numbers are bad. And he's just not galvanizing the Democratic Party. So with the ethics problems the way it is, you might not have him as the nominee. You might have Gavin Newsom and Gretchen Whitmer as the ticket.
I mean, that's what they're going to have to jockey and really figure out in short order, Martha. As you know better than anyone, these debates are coming up fast and furious on the Republican side. This president seems like he is essentially unchallenged. But the problem is, as Jesse points out, they're having trouble rather raising grassroots money right now. So when does it reach critical mass?
Yeah, we'd all love to have been a fly on the wall in that meeting because Jesse's exactly right. That is a very fraught relationship between the two of them. Remember that Obama, gave Hillary the tap to run. And his vice president, Joe Biden, that's around the same time that he decided to dig in deep to these foreign business ventures because he was like, I guess I'm not going to run for president. I'm going to be on my own. I might as well make some money and figure out what Hunter's been doing on all of these trips and see if I can sort of tap into some of that, it appears, based on all of the information that we've gotten from Devin Archer and Tony Bobolinsky and everyone else about him being at these meetings. But Obama never wanted him to run, right? And there was even discussions about him, coming back and saying, Joe, you don't have to do this, right? You don't have to run for president. And I think there was a big inclination on the president's part, based on a lot of reporting out there, that he wanted to prove to Obama that he could do it, that he could push things further than Obama. And on some things, he got further to the left than Obama on certain issues. So now his big problem is that he has to convince people that he should have another term. I would love to know what his reaction was to President Obama. If he took that advice seriously, if he thinks that Trump is really a threat, if he knows what to do to get himself more traction out there, what does he do? Right? He can't campaign from the basement anymore. He is now burdened not only with the issue of his age and infirmity, which is on video all over the place. He's also burdened by this Hunter situation, which people are increasingly concerned about. And looking at that and saying, well, Trump's got these indictments. Hunter Biden is, President Biden's got these problems, but they don't have anybody to step up and fill that void. That's the one thing he's got going for him right now.
What do they do, Tyrus?
Well, they're doing what they're doing. They're arresting and indicting their biggest competition. If you can't beat them, you got to get rid of them. So that's where he's going. The problem with this entire administration has been all the information, and they think Americans have a short memory. That's not how it is anymore in this country.
Yeah.
We are paying attention now. Minorities, we're paying attention. We're watching politics like sports now. We're paying attention to what the people we vote for, what they're doing. Now, when we got into the pandemic is why, and Jesse was right, and he got it. Now we're learning all the information that we got during the pandemic. He was lying to us. The guy who was supposedly the liar and the criminal was telling us like it is. He told us where it came from. He told us that the vaccines need to be looked at more closely. All those things that Trump said have come to be true. And all the things that he said has become to be untrue. And the Americans remember that. Plus, you walk out of your house, there's no more police officers around anymore. Your kids are 2 years behind on school. There's new jobs, but there's no hours. So there's all these things happening to the American people. And then when you look at him, one, you can't get a press conference without being told that he'll have to wait till another press conference. Or two, if you get him to talk, he gets frustrated and upset because, unfortunately, Father Time has not been kind to him. So he can't debate President Trump. So the only way you can do is show up at a debate and be like, well, I'm here to debate. Where is he? Oh, he's locked up. Oh, well, then I win. And so that's the strategy, 1,000%. Or somebody has to be the adult in the room and say, Gavin, it's your time.
Yes.
Plain and simple.
The
or
voters,
Kamala, let's go.
Oh, no.
You know what? I feel like she's been locked out of this administration since she's been in it. And this has been their desire to make her look bad, to protect President Biden. I think if given an opportunity, this is a chance for her at some point to say enough.
She's made herself look bad.
Yeah.
I agree, but she's not getting helped either. Dark Brandon. Remember?
Dark Brandon.
Dark Brandon is giving Kamala so much shade. Ahead, Democrats and the media want Trump behind bars without a fair trial. We will discuss next.
Hi, everyone. I'm Brian Kilmeade. I want you to do me a favor. I want you to click to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page. This is the only way that I know for sure that you're not going to miss any great commentary, any great news bites, any great interviews coming your way on Fox. You can get it all here on YouTube. So subscribe right now.